Alright, so now that we're up to this point, we're ready to begin modeling the back of the head as well as the ears. So, and I'm just going to bring this back just a little bit. That's the cheekbone right here. Knowing anatomy really helps, especially in the face region, but not absolutely required, at least for this. So the way I like to model the back of the head is I start with a sphere and I rotate it this way 90, and then again this way at 90. And then what I do is I scale it to approximately the size of my head, and then bring it up. And I've been modeling off the right side of my face, so I'm going to keep with that. And I'd say that's pretty close. My hair probably comes up, you know, ½ inch or so, give or take, so I'm going to leave that just like so for now. My hair I'm actually going to include in this model. Okay. And I'm going to turn symmetry off. And I'm going to simply start deleting some of these faces. So I'm going to start by deleting this section here and this section here. I'm going to check both references again. Okay. And I can even delete a couple of these segments. I'd say that's pretty good. And I could even go as far as maybe this part here also. I'll keep it there for now. Turn on my soft select, increase my brush size, and just kind of pull that out to start to match the reference a little bit more clean. Alright, now another thing I also want to do is, because I have it matching here, I want to go ahead and match the front of my skull. And I'm just going to sort of push and pull verts to where I need it to be. Something like so. Okay. And my head's a little long, I guess you would say, which is totally fine. I'm also going to delete this part on both sides. Okay. And I think that's a pretty good start up to this point. Now, check your reference. And it's starting to look kind of funny, but like I have a helmet on or something. And essentially that's kind of what this is. So I'm going to begin here, and I'm going to extrude these downward to this point. And now I'm going to take my vertices and start to combine them. Now there's spots where it'll line up really nice and other spots where it won't, and that's when we're going to go ahead and just do a, you can use the multi-cut tool, whatever works. Okay. Or the add divisions to faces, 2, apply. That was the wrong one. As you can see, it's crisscrossing. Apply. Okay. And now up. Up. And you could also match these ones. I guess it doesn't think it's symmetrical. That's okay, I'll just delete half of it and then okay. And I'll bring this one down and back a little bit. I'm also going to delete this one, and then I'm also going to include an extra edge loop in here. Okay, give myself a little bit extra geometry in that, and from here I'm pretty good. So again, I can always delete half. I could do a duplicate special or just scale it. Like so, combine. Alright. And that's the start of my head so far. Now, other things I want to take care of is here and here. Just kind of drag that down, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn off my bridge tool, or turn off my soft select tool, and I'm going to bridge these parts here. I'm going to start with one. I can always add more when needed, and actually hopefully I can do it a bunch at a time so I don't have as many vertices to merge. And I'll start there. Bridge, and it worked. And I'm going to do one division for now. And another thing I'm going to do is I could use my multi-cut tool. Hopefully it'll work on both sides. Escape will exit a... There we go. We'll exit the tool that you're using if it's not working right. And now I've added a couple more. Okay. And I'm just gonna double check to make sure these are merged as well. Alright, so I have the start of the head so far. Is it perfect? Not yet. But as long as it looks like a face, we're in good hands here. I'm at a point where I can actually combine both of these. And then I'm going to turn off symmetry for this part. and merge. And then I'm going to just use G to continue merging all these. I'm going to merge each one of these individually. And turn on Soften Edge. And just to take a quick look at it, it's starting to give the resemblance of a face. Now I still have a lot more to go, but from here it's not too difficult. Drag that down and over a little bit, and I'm just following my reference to the model. So just to give you an example, here and here are going to line up, and then this one and this one and this one and this one. And I'm going to extrude downward. And I'm going to scale this one in just a smidget. Oh, vertex. Merge vertices to center. Same thing over here. And I'm going to repeat this process mostly down the entire face, actually. Okay, so now here, just double clicking those edge loops to highlight all the way around and extrude down. Scale this in. And I'm doing this as I go, just to make it a little bit easier for myself visually. Alright. And you'll see that it's starting to get some of those hard edges, so I'll just soften that up. And I'm going to go through this, and I'm going to run a little sculpt on it. And I'm gonna match my reference here shortly. Okay. Extrude. We're gonna go downward again. And I'll just scale inward a little bit here. And I can actually bring this, if I want, like so, and then vertices, still don't have the ear in yet, but that's not too big of a problem to include here. I just need the geometry there to make sure that I can get to that point. And let me see where I am in my side view, because we do start getting into the neck region, and I would say that I'm basically there. I would say this is a pretty good start. Now, I've got the shape in here on the side view almost, and almost on the front view, but what I want to do next is I want to I'll soften edge, clean it up a little bit more so it looks more like more human anyway, instead of this weird sort of face mask. So I'm going to select my object and I'm going to go Mesh Tools, Sculpting Tool, Sculpt Tool. In my tool settings, the little hammer up here, I'm going to Symmetry, Object X, and that's my size of my brush and strength. And I'm going to increase my brush size, holding Shift. I'm going to start to sort of smooth this out. And in the back of the head, I'm going to increase my strength. Let's make it 0.2. Oop. Okay. And now here, now that I sort of smoothed it out, I'm going to just sculpt this out a little bit. I could bring out my brush tool, make it larger. I'm just trying to match that reference. Now another thing I can do is in my vertices, just highlight a couple of these here, using my soft select, just drag outward, and that's the start of the neck. And when I'm all said and done with this, I'm actually going to flip it one last time, and in here, whoops, about this point, select each one individually. It's not double clicking nicely for me. Drag that down a little bit. Drag that down a little bit. And I'm going to go back and do my Mesh Tool, Sculpting Tool, Sculpt Tool. Sort of fix that up a little bit. Just sort of, whoop, don't want to lose too much definition, but I also need to pull this out using my brush tool. And then even in the bottom of the face, okay. Brush tool smaller, sculpt this out. Check my side reference view. Bring my brush a little bit smaller, and I'm holding Control to bring that little indent in. I'll bring this out just a little bit. I have my beard there, so, or my goatee, so it doesn't need to come out that far because sort of the bushiness of it kind of pushes it out a little bit more than I probably need it to be. And I'd say that's pretty good. Now let me go ahead and check over here. Make sure it matches my reference pretty well. I'm only concerned about this side of the face, and I would say that's good. Now, last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my symmetry, and now I'm going to delete half of it one last time, or I might have to do this one again, but combine vertices, highlight all these, merge verts, merge verts. Alright, soften edges, and I'd say that's pretty good. Mesh tools, sculpting tool, sculpt tool. Make sure your symmetry is on, and start to sort of clean this up just a little bit. Oh. And I probably have these pushed out just a little bit more than they are. All right. Now, I'd say that's a pretty decent start to it. I'll bring this up just a little bit. Okay. Now I'll go ahead and finish off the neck. I'm going to turn off symmetry. I'm going to just highlight this entire section and run an extrude down, and I'm going to follow my reference here. And I can start to sort of straighten it out while also sort of, well, let's straighten it out all the way. And then I don't want to straighten it out all the way. I think it's actually okay like this. And then let's grab here. And we're going to continue this process down. Now I might need to make adjustments to this when I match it up with my original model, and I'll bring this down one more time. This is a pretty close enough to get started anyway. We still have the ear to do, the inside of the mouth, and the inside of the eyes. So, here, do something like that. Alright, so the ear, we're not going to do anything fancy because we're just going to texture it. We're just going to go ahead and grab these faces that we need, and I'm going to simply run an extrude. Ooh. And for whatever reason, I'm not going to be able to. I'm going to have to flip this one last time, I have a feeling. Okay. I'm going to run an extrude. Press R. And it's not working the way I want it to. So I'm going to turn off symmetry and just do it to one side. And make sure it matches. Alright. So I'm going to run an extrude. I'm just going to scale that in a little bit. Like so. One of the things I can also do is start to sort of line this up. Okay. Like so. Just pushing and pulling verts. And this actually is probably up a little bit. Something like that. Now, I'm trying to take a ponder and see if that ear is too far set back. It shouldn't be because it matches my reference, but if I do need to change it, I will. And I'm going to extrude. Oh. Outward. And then scale a little bit larger. And switch to my front view. Ooh. And then what I can do is run a rotate and try and sort of fix that. Okay. Alright, so excuse me. Technically, that's really all we need up to this point for the ear. Before I go ahead, Mesh Tools, Sculpting Tool, Sculpt Tool. I'm gonna fix this by using. I'm just gonna run a smooth on here, especially on the front part of the ear. And I'd say that's pretty good. There we go. Okay. Something like that. And the other thing I want to do is I'm going to use my multi-cut tool. I'm going to cut in one more edge loop. Oh, right here. And start to give this a little bit more of a shape to it, away from trying to create that whatchamacallit, that little lip around the ear. So I've created two edge loops wrapping around it, and now I'll go back and Mesh Tool, Sculpting Tool, Sculpt Tool, turn my brush smaller, and then in here I'm going to hold Control and bring that in to start to define, and then smooth where needed. Start to define this section here. Okay. Because I added extra edge loops in here, I want to make sure I go ahead and do that. Okay. And I'd say that's pretty good. You could technically model in a little bit, because in the ear there are these sections where it kind of indents inward and things like that, but I wouldn't worry too much about it, and just match the ear a little bit closer in reference. Okay. Something like that. Okay. Okay. See here. And I'm just trying to sort of match my reference. Now, things that we can do for this part of the ear, instead of modeling it all in, I'm going to leave it like that. Instead of modeling it all in, we can use normal maps and to create that illusion of depth when we get to texturing. So there is my character. Still not done yet. And if you feel like your reference is slightly off or something, just run a brush soft select tool that's large enough, and then you can shift the ear over however you like. Alright. I personally thought mine, even though the reference it lines up properly, I think it needed a little bit more room going this way. So I think that's a little bit better. Maybe not. Something like so. And now I'll begin to fill in the eyelids and the mouth. So these are the last steps that we have to do with this particular mesh. So with the eyelid, I'm going to hold shift and press I to isolate using my edge tool. I'm going to turn off brush. I'm going to simply extrude. I'm going to scale in a little bit, drag in a little bit, and then scale outwards. So if we go in the head here, and then start to model in the eyelid, the interior of the eye. Just extruding and dragging and scaling and start to scale this way. And it doesn't need to be like 100% perfect. I'll start to bring it down and around. And I'm going to stop almost about here. I'd say that's a pretty good stopping point. And I'm going to do fill hole. Now I'm going to use my multi-cut tool. And I'm going to start to just cut into this where needed. Trying to keep quads everywhere I can. That's a triangle, not a big deal, and then I have a quad. So that's totally fine. If I wanted it to be an extra quad, and if I wanted to include it in the geometry, I could always do that also, and just run one more extra edge loop around, and then that triangle will now be a quad. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, but the triangle is not that big of a deal. Alright, and here I'm actually going to bring this outwards, scale that out more, and this one, oop, a little bit out too. Alright, and then I can always run my Sculpt Tool. And that's how we do that. So now I've got the inside of the eye. And you do need that, and you can hold Control to indent it, inset it more. And there we go, something like so. And we're going to do the same thing in the mouth. And I'll run a soft select. And my eye seems a little too far out now. Let's bring it in just a little bit to give it that eyelid effect. And remember, whatever you do to one, you also have to do to the other. Alright. Okay. And if you feel like the eyeball needs to be a little bit bigger, I think mine, let me see, let me check my reference really quickly. It's okay for now. If I need to make it larger, I will. And now, what I'm going to do, whoa, we have some really strange I think my Sculpt Tool may have affected some of this region, so be careful of that. Ooh. And I'm just going through and doing a quick little double check here to make sure everything works correctly. Okay, and I'll bring this side out a little bit. Down here also. Sorry about that, I have to, and this might happen to you, so it's good that at least you'll know how to fix it. I'm just grabbing vertices as needed. Here and here. Okay. And double check this section. And this can actually go inward. Create that roundness of it. Okay, sorry about the silence there. Just double checking the mesh. Looks like I got a little bit of a issue in here, and actually here also. And there we go. Alright. This one in a little bit. And probably back a little bit. Okay. Alright, there we go. So I just had to fix that section. Hopefully I don't have to fix it again. Alright. That's starting to look like an ear. And I'm just going to grab that face and sort of Just push and pull where needed. Alright. So that's good enough for the ear. And the eye. We already have the interior of the nostril done, but we don't have the interior of the mouth. So this is the last part. Same exact thing that we did with the eye, except we're now doing it with the mouth. Okay, so I'm going to go straight up and down here. I just pulled in and went straight up and down, and now I'm just sort of scaling it as needed. And maybe a little outwards too. And now I'm just going to start to go back. So that kind of gives us room for the gums and the teeth, which I'm going to make optional, but I'll show you also how to go about doing that. Alright. And here. Now, what we're doing, if you think of it as like a little sock puppet, where we can reach in through the underneath the sock and sort of control the mouth, that's kind of what we're going to be doing here when we create the interior of the mouth and or the throat. And really all we're doing is, and at this point I'm going to start to scale it smaller and rotate it down. And do this a couple times, creating that little sort of sock puppet controller, if you will, but it's really, we're just creating the throat. And it stops about here, we'll say. And now I'm going to run a fill hole, and I'm also going to run the multi-cut tool and cut directly in to escape here. Here. Excuse me, I'm sorry about that. And one here. And it looks like I'll have to create a triangle or two in here, which is not a big deal. Okay, and with these I'm just going to simply go here to here and here to here. Alright, finally I'm going to go ahead and tools, mesh tools, sculpting tool, sculpt tool. I'm going to increase the size of my brush, and I'm just going to smooth out the inside of the mouth here. I'm not too concerned about it being symmetrical because I'm going to flip it so I don't have to model the entire thing. Excuse me. And press 4 so I can see. And I'm going to say that's pretty good up to this point. Press 5 again. And what I'm going to do later is I'm going to texture in the hair, and then I'll also try to adjust the geometry a little bit to include that feature of the hair. So, last step is to delete half and flip it and combine it. And now we're going to run a vertex, and I'm simply going to highlight all these vertices in the center. Hopefully I can get them all without accidentally selecting any others. Merge vertices, merge vertices. And there is our face. So now that the face is done for the most part, what we can do is I'm going to put these on a layer. I'm going to call these hide those. And now I'll turn on my base mesh, and my head is very large in comparison, so I need to go ahead and just scale this into place. Ooh. And before I do that, in the meantime, I'm just going to combine these, the eyes and the mesh, just to sort of scale it and put it into place. I can turn on my body reference images. Now again, it's not the same exact, I mean it should be close as long as it's all the same reference, but we're just going to go ahead and scale this into place. It may not match your body reference as well because of the we used a different reference. So my head is actually offset on this one, so I'm not worried about it because it matches my reference pretty well. So now I've got my head in place. I just uniformly scaled the entire thing from the side view because this was the best view to use at this point. And then what I'll do in the next video, we'll combine the head to the body. So that's where we're at with this. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we are getting there. So thanks for watching. If you feel like your head's, even after looking at the reference, might be too small or something, you can increase it however you need to. So anyway, that is our face lab. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll get into cleaning it up later and getting into the hair at a later point. But once you get this far, just go ahead and save, and stay tuned for the next video when we combine the head into the body. Thanks for watching. And if you have any questions, inbox me.